Hi, I'm Adam from Game Watcher, and here's our preview of Settlers: Kingdoms of Anteria. Settlers: Kingdoms of Anteria tries to update and revolutionise the traditional Settlers formula by adding an adventure mode to the city building core of the game. So far though, this evolution of the series fractures the experience into two halves that both lack depth and interest, with the adventure mode suffering the most. You start, as usual, with next to nothing, and the game's story takes you gently through the process of setting up your resource gathering, building residencies, and learning about production chains. It's a pleasing method of learning to make progress, even if you're new to the genre. Any experts, though, are likely to be frustrated at the slow and restrictive pace this takes the game in for the first few hours. Expansion is limited to certain areas, and you'll need to obtain a king's permit to unlock other areas of the map. These areas of expansion each have random resources within them, either fallen trees for wood, open mines, etc. But only one resource can be used by each production chain, so you can't share a woodpile to make wood, planks or charcoal, only one. Visuals are pretty nice for this city building stage, especially the animation of new buildings going up with the wooden framework exploding in a shower of splinters. Workers and townsfolk go about their business, and the visual delight of seeing your people carrying wood to the sawmill and then to the castle is pretty sweet. The resource gathering aspect of Settlers is deepened a little by the inclusion of perfect chains. By moving various parts of your supply chain to their optimal place and reducing the time it takes to produce wood, iron, etc., you get bonuses in the form of renown, which is the currency used to unlock upgrades and unlock further branches of the skill trees. Renown can also be obtained by going on adventures with your champion, and this is the new addition to Settlers that Ubisoft and Blue Byte hope will entice new players in and revolutionise the series. Well, I'll give them this: it's very easy to get into and understand, but the lack of depth to this part of the game and its graphical basicness leaves a lot to be desired. Controls in this section aren't unlike Torchlight, with basically clicking right to send your fighter across the screen and using left to initiate special moves or items. Your champion will auto-attack any enemies that are near him. This is where the similarity ends though, as slogging through these sections of the game so far has been a dull and tedious challenge. None of the animations feel particularly meaty, and there's just no sense of connection between your button presses and what happens on the screen. If it wasn't for needing certain items to unlock buildings or renown, I would have happily ignored this part of the game. Yes, you can link up with friends online to adventure together, but really there are a ton of other games that do this loot questing RPG far better and much deeper than Settlers does here. On paper though, this fusion between the city building resource management game that Settlers is known and loved for, and an action RPG romp to acquire treasure, artefacts and bump along a narrative sounds good, and could have made for an awesomely new avenue for the genre, but instead Kingdoms of Anteria just doesn't do either one of these halves particularly well. The traditional city building is all still there, albeit in an odd online-only fashion, but the inclusion of a very lightweight action RPG is pretty much detrimental to the type of game Settlers is in the first place. Behind all of this, both good and bad parts of the game, lies the online part of the equation. Before the game will start, you have to log in to the Antichrist of Steam, Uplay, and no amount of wailing or gnashing of teeth will enable you to play it offline. The beta has been a bit too patchy so far to try out any co-op play, but even in solo mode, I frequently experience latency issues leading to lagging animations and generally icky framerate problems in both the city building and adventure modes. I mean, you'd expect that of an online game, especially in early beta, but as Settlers has a storied past of great single-player experiences, anyone coming to this with some history in the series is going to feel pretty disappointed. Sure, these problems might be ironed out on release, but anyone looking for the option of just a single-player game is going to be disappointed and should probably look elsewhere. Your city in this game is permanent, which means the attraction of rebuilding it, like in so many previous games, is gone. That may not be a bad thing depending on your point of view, but the size of the map feels really quite small, and there's always this feeling of just filling in the puzzle pieces rather than actually creating something unique yourself. The sections that you unlock all feel very cookie cutter, and it's very easy to fill them up very quickly with residences, new merchant houses and new production lines, leaving the creative aspect of making something pleasing a little more difficult due to the restrictive nature of the space. If the game had stuck to its roots and made itself an online city building experience, then Settlers Kingdoms Anteria could have been an interesting step forward for the series. As it is, the adventuring side, though interesting in theory, just doesn't jive well with the rest of the game. I can't help feel that the time spent on it could, and perhaps should have been spent on the main game. There's still value here, and all aspects of the game can be improved before final release. This is just in open beta after all. But I'm finding it difficult to get excited about splintering the gameplay of such a classic gaming franchise.